He's a good guy.
Are we good? Thanks. Let's get started here with a little discussion. Welcome everybody tonight. And let's get started first with Mr. Larry Hadley. You're always first on the agenda.
Well, I do appreciate that. Board, I'm sorry to pass this, but I just want you to pass it along as I'm It's just easier when you see.
Good to see you still have your monitor covered.
I got some gear still.
Thank you.
There is some green space still around.
Well, it's an old map.
This is really old now.
There's a building on the bottom right now.
The drainage just had to get
I'd
water here.
like to thank Superintendent Butters and the board for just giving me a few minutes to update you kind of on the storm drain issue at Westfield High School. And we've got a plan in place. I just want to walk you through it. I'm just going to give you a general idea and hopefully answer your questions as I go. I want to start by just saying why we actually have this issue, if that's okay. So when the design team was getting organized, because we broke ground, I think last February, almost a year ago, that the design team has a civil engineer. And to get ahead of the game, another civil engineer was brought in to do a site survey. They surveyed the whole site, and one of the parts they surveyed was 4,300. Now remember, there was a drain ditch, farmland, no longer. So when you pipe that in,
That was down here.
stormwater
has to go somewhere.
That's where the school is.
Well, in the 4,300 survey, there are 5 pipes in the road. And it's not really laid out the best. One of the mistakes, for lack of a better word, is on record, one of the pipes is listed as a 24-inch pipe. So on the site survey, you really don't see these 5 pipes or the diameter of pipe till you pothole the road. Which after the survey, we were going to tie into the sewer, and so we opened up the road. Now, this is just about June, July. When you open the road, the sewer line was not 24 inches, it was 42 inches. Now that'll come into play here shortly. But the other pipes was a pressurized gas pipe, pressurized irrigation pipe, culinary pipe, and a drain pipe. So this presented a problem because of the 42-inch pipe, the diameter of that pipe. You can't go underneath it or the pipe sinks. And then we'd be liable for the entire sewer line down 4,300. So we had to construct 3 or 4 options to present to Hooper Irrigation because we had to tie into their drain line. So all of this happened August 1st was the irrigation board meeting. So we went in and presented some ideas. When I say me, it was a civil engineer, and they presented 4 ideas. We could provide lift stations that would lift the water over a crossing, and then we would tie into the Hooper irrigation pipe. We could loop the gas pipe and then tie into the Hooper irrigation pipe. But both of those were not resolved because Hooper did not want us tying into their existing pipe. We could have lowered their irrigation pipe and ran our own pipe, but they wanted us to lower 1,200 feet of their pipe. That was about an $800,000 cost. The lift stations are $20,000 or $200,000 a piece. We'd have to put in 5 of them. Hooper Irrigation gave us a couple of options. We could go north down 4,300. We'd still have to put in pumps, and we'd still be dealing with the same 5 pipes. So we'd have to go to the east side of the road, and then we'd have to replace every power pole that we would move. Bruce and I have been working with Rocky Mountain Power. You can see there's such a delay there. But the cost was estimated at $750,000 to $1 million to run north. They offered us the opportunity to go diagonal. Now, this field that we're on, I just want you to know, we're talking about kind of drains south and north. The southern water is out going south. It's going to the southwest corner. So it's really just the north side drain water, which is actually in the front of the west side, which I'll get to the map in just a minute. Well, the option going diagonal actually puts the pipe underneath the school. And to get the flow for the number of feet, we'd have to bury that pipe pretty deep. If there was ever a problem, we never wanted to dig up the school to fix this pipe, so that wasn't an option. So we left the Hooper irrigation meeting a little befuddled by the options not being accepted and their options not being feasible. So after that, we actually met with a brother of one of the board members who was out there, who was, for lack of a better word, I'll call him a local farm guy, so I know him, I know the family. We had a meeting. He said, one of the options, Hadley, would be to go north of the site and drain into this slough, not going down the road. So if you're looking at this map, at the very bottom is our school site. There's kind of, it separates two parcels. It's not really a line, but it's kind of right there. If you just go to this bottom right corner, you'll see a lot. It's blue, it looks like a pool. It's actually a basketball court. That's a home. That property line was the easiest access for us to run all the water from the northwest corner to the from the southwest corner to the northeast corner, and from the northwest out. So we would have to cross that property of 1861, then kind of do a little diagonal into that property 4403. That takes us all the way down to 1800 south. And then we've got to work on properties on the north side of 1800 to get to that creek. That creek you can see runs right here. Okay, so our plan was, let's go meet some neighbors. So instead of sending a civil engineer to meet the neighbors, it was proposed, I'll go meet the neighbors. The reason being, the civil engineers can't promise anything on an easement agreement. They can't give a price for an easement agreement. For example, if 1861 and 4403 want to develop, we want to provide an easement that they could tie into. That would be one of our selling points for an easement. You don't want the civil engineer to do it, you want a WSD representative, who just happened to be me. So I went and knocked on some neighbors' doors. Now you just have to imagine a gentleman you've never met knocks on your door and says, I'd like to run a pipe through your ground. Have a nice day. So we started late August and met the neighbors. Now you gotta remember, we're talking two sets. You gotta talk to the set to get us to 1800 and then the set to cross 1800. So there's two groups here. Well, you can see that 1885, we weren't gonna use his property. It's the property next that's got that Z-formed property line. But they're related. And I was asked to speak to the person in 1885 instead of the elderly lady in the other home. So we did. So we started to meet with the neighbors. And we had a couple of meetings. And what we were really asking is, can we run a pipe from 1861 across to 4403, across to 1800 underneath it, and out 4370?
It's on an angle. There you go.
That sound okay? I want to say, everybody I spoke to was very, very friendly, very accepting, and most every one of them has a tie to the Weaver School District. So we had a lot of meetings. The first thing we were asking is, can we survey it? And they gave us permission to survey it. The reason we need to survey it, we had to actually make sure we had enough fall to get to the creek. If you don't like the word creek, they've been using slough. I use slough, they use creek. So when we surveyed it, well, we went back to each of these homes. And we brought the civil engineer and the topographical maps, and we showed them. Once we knew it was feasible, we started talking about an easement agreement. I worked with Heidi Alder, we drafted an easement agreement. We gave them to them. They had a few questions, as anybody would. We met again as the entire group. This is October, and we walked out of the meeting feeling that everybody was on board. A couple of days later, one of the families just just didn't feel right about it. We didn't want to pressure this person, and so we moved. So it was kind of dead in the water at that moment. So what we did is we moved to parcel 4409. This parcel
What's this here?
is owned by some of the same family members.
Is that over here?
This parcel would allow us to do the same thing. We just have to move the Westfield water further more west, then take it through 4409, and then you see parcel 4408.
Across the street.
There's a little flag pole, we call it the flag lot, where we wanted to run it. So we started to meet with the people in 4408. They were very friendly and very accepting of what we were trying to do. So we had two options on the north of 1800. We just couldn't get the pipe there. 4409 was great, but there were 13 restrictions placed on this parcel. And they did not want to sell us an easement, they wanted to sell us the ground. So we moved to 4435. They're in the process of building a beautiful barn right where we wanted to put the easement. That was out. Just so happens the same day I get called from these families saying, hey, we don't think one of the group quite understands what's going on. Would you mind sending a letter? Was happy to. Wrote a letter, sent it to them. In November, we're all back on. They sent me a letter with 21 requests on it about the easement agreement. Heidi and I went through them. We were okay to do 18 of them. Some of them were non-starters. I'll just give you an example. One of the things they asked is that they could terminate the easement agreement. Well, I'm not sure how you terminate a storm drain pipe, so that just wasn't an option for us. It's a perpetual easement, yes. So we referred them back to perpetual. We walked through that. About December, they were back on board. At the same time, 4409 had lifted some of his restrictions. 2 weeks later, the first option, going through the three properties, was once again dead on arrival. The 4409, 1st of January, all restrictions were lifted but one. And that was, you cannot make this a through fare to the high school. We didn't have a plan to do that. We were accepting of that. So I got with Superintendent Butters. We looked at a land purchase. Reason being is we could purchase this land, put our pipe on it, and then resell that land. And we'd be out we'd almost break even. We were going to buy these easements for $20,000 each, just so you know. Okay? Well, that seemed acceptable. I went back to 4408. He was highly acceptable. In fact, the entire easement, we need 20 feet to construct it, 15 feet afterwards. That flag is 32 feet. He's going to give it all to us to construct it as an easement. Our only issue now is the stream, and we have to alter that stream to put our pipe in. And we have to regulate the flow. So we go back to the very start of the high school, and we're going to regulate the flow of water that can go in this pipe, through the pipe, and then out the pipe. We don't want to send the whole stream. We don't want to tear up the banks of that stream. So on the 16th of January, the owner of that property agreed to sell it, but would not sell his water shares. So called Gina. We discussed it. We lowered our offer because we could then take 2 of our water shares from the site and transfer it to that parcel to sell it. So we proposed to buy this parcel, 4409, place our storm drain from the high school through 4409, then diagonally go through that flag lot. That's a lot of information. That's 10 minutes on what I've been doing for 7 months. So
That's a lot of work on your part.
well, it was very nice. Everybody I talked to was very amenable and accepting of well, like I say, we had our hopes dashed a few times, but we kept things alive. Can I answer anything about storm drain water?
We could make a TV series out of that.
I don't think I'd star in it because you wouldn't get many viewers, but I could think some stuff.
How confident are you now that this is done?
Jen, I'm very confident we have an option to get to the stream. The only thing that I'm concerned about is still the stream alteration permit from the state.
What are they asking you?
That's, we just have to show them what we're doing and how we have to change the flow. There's a couple things we've got to do because that goes really low. We're going to have to build that up with some fill dirt, and they've asked us that pipe to be a bridge to the flag lot itself. There's no bridge over that stream, and we're going to place one. So Jan, I'm 100% sure we have an option. I'm just 5% a little concerned the state might have us do a couple of hoops to jump through.
Okay.
And does that
Just for your,
through the Corps of Engineers also?
yes, yeah. So we've made contact with everybody. In fact, I was hoping this meeting would be 2 days later. Tomorrow, I'm actually meeting with the 2 civil engineers, the state, and the contractor about a plan to put this in.
Are we selling the lot back to the original owner? or-
No,
okay,
we do
so-
not. We do not have to do that,
Okay.
and we don't think the original owner wants
Wants it
it.
back, okay, that was what I was curious.
And it depends on when we want to sell it. Depends on what you guys
I
want to
didn't
do.
know if that was.
The pipe's gonna be on the property line almost, isn't it?
Yeah, we want to not run it down the middle.
Right.
When we sell it back, we actually want to run it down the east line.
Great.
Which makes sense on an easement for somebody wanting to put a.
That's correct.
Outbuilding,
So
it
when
won't
we-
bother them.
Yep. So when we sell it, they'll already know there's an easement right there.
Absolutely. Larry, my question is on that flag lot.
Yeah.
4408.
Yes.
Are we going to maintain anything on that just to make it where he gave it to us?
We're gonna, it doesn't show it, but right there, we're gonna do a couple of things for 4408. Right there in the flag lot, there's an actual ditch right in the front. We're gonna pipe that for him.
Okay,
We're gonna road the flag.
okay.
And we're building a bridge over the stream so he can access the flag part. He's never been able to access
So
it.
we'll be able to keep that clean for him, the weeds down, and it works for both of us.
That's the deal.
All right.
Yep, and I spoke to him today.
Board, it was stated that Larry's hustle has been amazing. One day I had a conversation with him and he was literally standing in the middle of the stream that we're talking about. He was in the water. So I just want to acknowledge the due diligence he's put into this and just can't thank him enough. It's been quite a project.
Appreciate it.
I think we're very lucky.
Are we good?
Looked at it.
Okay.
Also, board, so it's an action item later on in the agenda to purchase this property.
Yes, perfect. Good?
And
Thanks.
this went to capital improvement.
This was through the capital improvement. Yes, sir.
And those on the capital improvement committee have been led along the way with all this,
Yes.
all this intrigue.
I've been boring Doug and Bruce, I'm sorry.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Hadley. Any other questions? Catch your breath now, Larry.
Thanks, sir.
Let's talk a little bit about some strategic planning, Superintendent.
This is more just an informational piece, Board. We have scheduled a special board study session for February 15th. You've received a calendar invite for that morning. And what we plan to do during that morning is cover 2 to 3 topics related to some ongoing planning for the district around mission, vision, kind of a strategic plan around student outcomes for the district, as well as updating you on our boundary study process. And then we'll also update you on the new school builds. So there's a 3-pronged piece there to that study session. I just wanted to let you know that we have sent you that invitation and are looking forward to that study session.
Share with them, Superintendent, share with them what the folks from the other district mentioned to you about our boundary studies. The size of it.
Yes, so I've been approached, strangely and alarmingly, by several superintendents who have patted me on the back to say, how are you handling one of the most, or if not the most, significant boundary study in a district that's been done?
In the state of Utah.
In the state of Utah, and I realized that it was probably our biggest in Weber District, but I'm hearing from others that this is on that kind of a grand scale, that it is probably, due to the amount of acreage and real estate part of the county we're dealing with, that it's on that scale. So, and we're well on our way, and the process is going really well, and I'm excited to tell you about the process on the 15th.
Thank you, Superintendent. Anything else for Superintendent Butters on that? Let's move to the next one. Our JLC/legislative updates. Janice, do you want to take some time on that? And then Superintendent Butters, please.
Well, our JLC meets every Friday during the legislative session. And they're always in mind of what's happening in the legislature and what the position of the School Board Association is regarding it, and kind of to educate us all on that. Speaking with Superintendent, there were so many bills considered. We figured that the two very critical ones were the one that was passed, the HB 215, and then the upcoming concern about taking the earmark off of the money that comes in, and that now it's earmarked for education. So to start with HB 215, the intention of it is to provide funding for those who feel that where they are presently in the education system is not meeting their needs. The allocation for the bill was $43 million to finance approximately 5,000 scholarships, and these will be awarded starting with lower income applicants. That doesn't mean that middle income others should not apply, but the federal guidelines will be a criteria or will help them decide who gets these scholarships. Each scholarship is for $8,000 to be used for educational purposes, and these purposes are to be deemed by the student's parents. As in the Utah Constitution, it designates parents as having the primary responsibility for their students' education. $200 million was also designated to enhance teachers' salaries at the rate of $6,000 a year in perpetuity. These funds are not out of the education funds. These are more out of general funds. Now, in the analysis of going forward, accountability will be a key concern, and who knows, down the road we'll see how this unfolds. It may require some tweaking, some amendments, whatever, to bring it more in line with what's acceptable financially. Do you want to add anything, Superintendent?
I want to just make sure the board understands what our concerns are. Of course, our teachers deserve a $6,000 raise and ongoing increases to salary. We've been prioritizing that and working on it. This places us in a little bit of a precarious situation because it doesn't allocate any funding for our great classified and support staff. That is a major concern that we have. It also pulls money away from public ed, and as you know, 5,000 students total. If you take the percentage of students that could impact in our district, it will likely be minimal to start. Hard to tell how many students will actually, and parents, take advantage of this scholarship opportunity. But we are concerned about those pieces because we want to make sure that we are able to fund all of our employees' salary schedules moving forward. And so I'm anxious to see what other pieces might come to play there that are pro-public education. And one of the big concerns we have as a JLC is, as you know, we are almost dead last in per pupil spending in the state of Utah. So what we've asked, what we're pushing for in relation to this bill is that there is some sort of guarantee going forward that we will see some work done to get our WPU closer to at least 75th percentile. Maybe we'd really like to shoot high. We'd like to go 50th percentile, but try to promote that notion and at the same time make sure that they understand that we have needs for all employee groups and retention and attraction of all employees, and to try to make sure that we have the funding we need to alleviate some of the stresses and gaps we have right now. So those would be two pieces that I think I would like to add that we're concerned about.
Good, thank you so much.
Can I ask a question, Jeff?
Yes.
Was there any discussion about, they tied teacher salaries to it? Is that an ongoing thing, or is that a one-time money?
We are not so clear about that yet. It has been proposed that it will be an ongoing piece, an ongoing tie for that assurance for the teacher raise. But again, that's problematic because it feels like we're almost being held, it's being leveraged and we're being held hostage to that, right? And so it's caused some hard feelings. It has, and some distrust in the process. We have felt as a JLC that we probably weren't informed and included in some of the precursory conversations that went on, and we were hit with this pretty late in the process, and that's been a concern too. There's some trust to be rebuilt around this particular bill.
I think, as you said, it'll be very interesting to see how it unfolds and how it will have to be dealt with when these issues arise.
We'll be hopeful. We're going to be
Yes.
hopeful. Yep.
Yes. I told Superintendent I was in situations where I was amazed by the diverse reactions to this. Some people were jubilant, others were just even of the same left-right persuasion. Were not as happy, and I just thought, okay, we don't know. We're going to have to watch it unfold and see how it happens.
Let me just ask you, what was given as far as the oversight on this money?
Another concern, Bruce. Go ahead, Jim.
I'm talk about the agents or the.
Yeah, there's a piece that we're trying to understand more clearly that there's going to be a qualification of a program manager who will oversee the Utah Fit Scholarship, but we're not quite sure exactly what that's going to entail. We're waiting to hear some more information on that. But the other piece to it, speaking to the accountability piece, is we're very concerned as a public education entity receiving public funds, we have high accountability to the public for student outcomes. I see nothing in this bill that assures that there is any accountability to student outcomes, and that is very concerning to me.
I guess that was my question, and that's a concern to me as well.
So our eyes will be open and we'll be watching for accountability.
I was going to say another thing, speaking from the money guy. I think it's been about 12 years. They deposited a similar amount of money. It was $4,200 into the educator salary adjustment. That's the funding line. It's called the educator salary adjustment, and it was for teachers. And it was great, but it's below the line. It's not tied to WPUs, and that has not grown. And every year we subsidize that more and more from regular funds. And this $6,000 raise is being put in the educator salary adjustment, where it'll, if history repeats itself, it'll languish, and we'll just have to keep subsidizing to keep it up. The other thing too is the $6,000 is the total compensation. You got to take Social Security retirement out, and so teachers would see a net around 43, 4400, not 6,000.
Well, the other thing that we felt was of interest, concern, imperative for the board to be aware of is the discussion of the removal of the earmark. And that earmark that has designated funds from the income tax go directly to education has been in position since, well, when I asked our legislative lady, Lexi, she said since the 30s or 40s. It's been a significant
It's a
time.
constitutional protection. Yeah, Amendment G.
Well, right now, the education fund has $1 billion surplus, and that's mainly from income tax. And it may only be used for education. Some legislators would like the earmark to be removed so that they have more flexibility with the funds and may take care of education not only in the good times but the challenging times. Now, I talked to a person who is on the state board who is quite aware of things, and he said it really isn't just a money grab. It really is a concern that we talk about the increase of income tax. And he said at this point the legislature has no incentive to do anything about income tax because it goes full-fledged into the education fund, and they have no flexibility to use it in any other direction. So there are people who are not just seeing this as as I say, a money grab, but as something that could very much benefit education. And so we've got to watch that and see. The removal, and that's what I've just said, the removal of the earmark would add incentive to the legislature to raise the income tax and bring more into education. Observers understand the desire, but, as that superintendent said about HB 215, they maintain that some sort of constitutional guarantee should replace this earmark so as to set a base amount that must be allocated to education. Not just turn it over full-fledged, but make sure that there is a constitutional commitment to the allocation to education. The discussion regarding this matter is ongoing, and thus far there is not yet a proposed bill. It's being discussed. The people who are involved, who care to bring it one way or another, are in deep discussion. Would you add anything, Superintendent?
No, I would just add the concern that we have is obvious. This is earmarked for public ed. In terms of the proposals, we've been invited to the table with proposals, and I think as a JLC body, we are going to ensure that we propose options around this in terms of please make sure that the WPU continues to be funded adequately and make sure that there are constitutional assurances built in. If you're going to take away a constitutional assurance, let's build some in to make sure that we are allocated a set amount of funding going forward. I think that is going to be something that comes out of the JLC.
I know that members, excuse me.
Oh, that's okay. So the Amendment G is part of the state constitution. So in order to change that, does that go to a public vote also?
Yes,
Probably will, yes.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
That was true.
We're a ways away from that. Yep, a lot of discussion.
So any other questions or concerns or comments? It was very interesting to hear the conversation about it and how we'll just go forward. This, as is similar to HB 215, needs to be watched and need to, if you have an opinion, if you have an observation, as you become informed, step up and let your legislator know, because it really does make a difference if they hear from you.
Good. Thank you. Agnes, anything else,
I
Superintendent?
think we're good. In the interest of time, I think we've got one more item.
We have one more item. Okay, Board, I believe everyone has received a copy of the committee assignments that we've, because of changes on the board, that we've, as I wrote my chicken scratches down running around the house and then gave it to Pam, I think she's translated it pretty well. Looking over that, over those assignments, is everybody okay with where you're at still? Did I mess any of them up?
Yeah, but that's okay.
You're almost in. Okay. Thanks everybody for your help on that. That was a lot of changes that went on. So, Robert, did you get a copy of that?
I do.
Okay, 'cause some of those affect you a little bit.
Kelly just told me she wants to put the insurance rep on her resume.
Get her done.
Yeah.
It's an important one.
She will probably be far more involved than the last person from the board on that committee. All right, board, we've got just about 5 minutes or so. Let's take a quick break and then we'll come back in and start our meeting. Thank you.